Oh, hello. Hi, friends. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, Kath Holden. You all are starting to appear. Hi, thanks for joining me today. This is so much fun. I have to admit, this is my first Instagram Live ever. And with anything new, there's always a certain amount of nerves. And if I could wish anything for today, it would be that my camera stays attached to this makeshift tripod situation I have in front of me. You can't see it, thank God. That my neighbor will decide not to mow the lawn, and that I remember all the steps to the project. So if you could join me in putting that out into the universe, I would appreciate it, and I think all will be well. This is week 5 of the Making It at Home challenge. And if you have been following along, we've been making some pretty cool stuff. Our dear friend Justine made those amazing playing card flowers week 1. Our buddy Egan put together that Muppet-inspired sock puppet, so cool. My neighbor and friend Billy Keel managed to shrink his taco truck down to pet size, which was amazing. And then, of course, last week, our dear friend Rebecca made that amazing jewelry organizer for your moms, and I loved that. If you don't know me, my name is Robert Mahar. I am a proud Season 1 alumnus of NBC's Making It, and I am so delighted that Nick and Amy have invited me here today and that they have partnered with our friends at NBC to put on this challenge. The winner each week wins $1,000 donated to the local food bank, which I think is pretty spectacular. It gets us all making, puts some creativity and some good out into the world. So I am particularly tickled, though, to be here for the Totally Tubular Challenge. There is nothing quite like a classic toilet paper tube craft. And let me show you what we're going to be making today. We are going to be transforming those toilet paper tubes into this pretty spectacular little marionette, if I do say so myself. Pretty stinking cute and relatively simple to put together. Now, I will tell you, I'm going to give you step-by-steps for the manner in which I constructed this, but know that you can scale this for any skill level. If you've got little kids at home right now and you need a great craft to work on with them, I'm going to tell you some ways that you can simplify this, some steps that you can skip, just to make it a little bit more user-friendly. Or if you are an adult with a little extra time on your hands and you want to make something a little extra, we're going to cover that too. I will also say we've got a pretty short amount of time together today. I've got about 15 minutes to whip through this craft with you, which is probably a little less than you will need in real time, quite honestly. But I did want to let you know that if you are a subscriber to my newsletter, I send out a little bit of happy mail each month. This weekend, I'm going to send out a written tutorial with step-by-steps and photographs. If you're not a subscriber, you can head on over to my Instagram feed. There's a link in the bio, or you can head to my website, which is robertmahar.com. Sign up for that, and you won't miss any of the steps for this project. So quickly, let's go over the materials you're going to need to put this together. You obviously are going to need a couple of toilet paper tubes. You can use standard ones. You can take a paper towel tube, cut it down. You can use some shipping tubes, cut those down. A lot of craft supply stores sell something that they call craft tubes. I actually have a ton of these in my craft stash, so that's what I'm going to be using today. They're almost identical to the toilet paper tubes, maybe just a tiny bit larger, but whatever you have, I'm sure will work. The name of the game with these quarantine crafts is using what you have at home, so we're going to do that to our best of our ability today. Now, when you look at the marionette, you can see that we need 2 toilet paper tubes to put together the body. You're going to need some glue. I'm using both white glue and some hot glue today. Scissors, a craft knife would be great. You'll want paint to paint your marionette, and some colorful paper. I use some lightweight cardstock, but if you've got construction paper or perhaps some colored copy paper, any of that you can make work. So, am I missing anything? Pom-Poms. We could use some pom-poms. And I'm going to talk about some substitutions that you could use for that as well. And popsicle sticks, thank you. I'm using some jumbo craft sticks, but we'll talk about alternatives you can use for those as well. Now, two of these guys, one is the body, one is going to become the head, and we're going to need to cut that down. The head that I created was a little bit more than half the size of the standard toilet paper tube. Now, you could use your scissors, just freehand that, cut it down, but if you're like me and you like a nice neat line to cut along, cut yourself a little strip of cardstock, wrap it around the base of your tube, kind of tap it down so it's nice and flush along the bottom edge. Grab your pencil and trace along that top line. What that's going to do is give you a nice, even, straight line all the way around your tube that you can then grab your scissors and cut out, or you can take a craft knife, insert it in, and with sort of a sawing motion, work your way around the exterior. I will note, this is an adults only tool. Because of the curved surface of the tube, there is the possibility of a blade slipping, and we don't want anyone to cut themselves. So adults, if you're doing this with your kids, that step is exclusively yours, my friend. What you're gonna end up with then is a piece for your body and a piece for your head. Now, once we've got those two guys, we need to poke some holes into them, and these are to attach our strings. You can see in the head, there's a little string that attaches right between the ears. In the back, there's one attaches right in front of the tail, and then one right behind the neck. For the neck piece, you want to give yourself about an inch. You want to give yourself room to attach that neck onto it. Now, I have found hands down the easiest way to create these holes is with a simple hole punch. I have one that is 1/8 of an inch diameter. I like that size because it's a little bit smaller, but if you've got a 1/4 inch one, which is one that you'll more commonly find in the office supply stores, that'll work too. In our next step, when we're tying the knots, you just want to make sure that you tie a knot large enough that it's not going to slip through that hole. So, okay, we've got our holes. Now we want to cut our string. For this, you're going to cut a couple of pieces of string. One piece of string that's going to connect to the body, and we're going to create a large loop. I say something somewhere between 25 and 30 inches, but this is flexible, and we can even them all out once we tie them onto the strings. And then obviously a little bit of a shorter piece to attach the head there, maybe 10 to 15 inches is a safe bet. I am just using a standard household twine. If you've got yarn, if you've got embroidery floss, this is a make it work situation. So I have gone ahead and cut these out in the interest of time. You can see I've got my longer piece and then one that is slightly shorter for the neck. And what you'll do is you'll feed it in through the exterior, the top of the tube, pull it through and tie yourself a knot. You are actually going to end up double knotting this, maybe triple knotting it, just to make sure that it is large enough not to slip through that hole. Let's see if I can do that on camera and quickly. Nope. Oh, okay, let's tie a larger knot. Word to the wise. If you are working with yarn, obviously it's going to be easier to tie a little bit of a larger knot. Thank you for the hearts. I appreciate that. I always think it's hilarious when I'm teaching in-person classes and I royally screw up. I do think it adds a little bit of humanity to the instruction, and hopefully you'll learn from some of my lessons. There we go. That's a better size knot. And you can see, ta-da, fully attached. I'm going to do the same thing to attach the other end through the other hole. And you are going to do the very same thing with the shorter piece of string into your headpiece. Follow that? Okay. Now, you will notice on the marionettes that I created that I've put little caps on the ends of the toilet paper tubes. And I like this look just because I think it creates this illusion that it's a solid piece, even though we are fully aware that they're hollow on the inside. But let me say, this is a 100% optional step. If you are doing this with littles, there is no shame in leaving that completely hollow and open-ended. Perfectly fine. What I would suggest is that when you go to paint it, that you paint both the interior and the exterior of it. But I want to show you a quick way to add on those end caps. If you take your toilet paper tube that's already got the string attached, take some white glue, apply it to the rim of your tube, and then take a little piece of cardboard. I cut this down from a cereal box this morning. Attach it on there. You want to attach it on both ends. Set it down to dry. You're going to do that with both the body and with the head. If you opt for this step, just know that you want the glue to be pretty dry before we move on to the next component, and that's going to take 20-30 minutes, so just so you're aware. But once it's on there, it's solid and ready to go, and what you'll do is you'll take your craft knife and set it on your work surface and just trim away that excess cardboard. You can also do this with a pair of scissors, no problem. But what that does is it allows you a very clean edge when you're finished. And so you see the body piece now, it actually looks like a really solid cylinder there, and also for the head. So once we've added our end caps, we've added our string, it's time to paint. And sky's the limit, my friend, as far as your color palette is concerned. I like really bright, colorful palettes for these projects, and so I've opted for this particular one for a nice bright pink. And if you do not have paint at home right now, break out those markers, or perhaps cut out some construction paper, wrap it around. There's lots of different ways that you can decorate the exterior. I also think that it would look pretty cool if you left it, excuse me, just plain craft and maybe added jute pom-poms, so you've kind of got this beautiful monotone color palette. I know Simon will love that one. So once it is painted and dried, we're ready to move on to our next step, and that is adding on the legs. I have created these paper legs that have a little bit of a springy accordion fold, and I'll tell you the reason I did that is because it adds some really nice movement to your marionette. When you move it around, it kind of makes the head bobble and the legs move back and forth. It gives it a little bit of life, which I enjoy. So, excuse me, I'm gonna take a little drink of water, doing a lot of talking. If you will, at this point, gather some colorful paper. Again, this can be construction paper, this can be lightweight cardstock like I'm using. I've cut these down into 3/4 inch wide strips. If you go a little wider, a little thinner, it doesn't matter. What you do want them to be is the same length. This was from an 8.5 by sheet of paper, so these are 11 inches long. Any length as long as they're the same. At that point, you're gonna take two of the pieces and you're gonna glue them together in this sort of triangular formation. You can see how that corner is really flush there. It's nice and even. And we're gonna fold them back and forth, alternating the colors. So I'm gonna fold the pink over the yellow, and now I'm gonna fold the yellow over the pink, and you just keep up this process, alternating back and forth, back and forth. I'll do a couple of these. If you've got a child that is a little bit older in elementary school, this is a great part of the project to hand over to them to do. And I will say, if you are working with little kids and you want to skip this step, simply attaching a strip to the bottom of the paper tube for the leg, totally acceptable and will work. When you get to the end, add a little glue. And what I typically will do is clamp it shut with a clothespin, set it aside to dry it, just make sure that it all stays together. But when you're finished, you'll notice I have a little bit of extra flaps of paper there. I'm just gonna take my scissors and trim those off. Snip and snip. And what you end up with is this really cool, bi-colored, bouncy, semi-accordion fold, springy leg. We're gonna do 5 of these because we're using them for the 4 legs and also for the head. And once those are completed, we're gonna start to attach them to the body. And I've attached these with hot glue. It just sort of expedites the process. And because white glue takes a few minutes to dry and we are adhering it to a curved surface, if you've got hot glue, I'd probably opt for that. I've got my legs attached, as you can see. I'm gonna bring in my hot glue gun now. Apply a little bit of it to the end of the neck, and then we're gonna attach it right in front of the string there, you see? So it kind of pops up, which is great. We'll give that just a second to set up, and then we're gonna attach the head to that. So, a little bit of hot glue, again, to the top of your neck. And then you want to attach it right below where the string is attached. That's the underside. Just hold it there for a second so it'll set up. Now, while this is drying, and we're running out of time already, can you believe it? We're going to talk about some of the add-on features. You can see that I have added pom-poms to the feet, to the tail, and on either side of the ears. I love a good pom-pom. If you've got ready-made store-bought pom-poms in your craft stash, perfect, use them. Other alternatives, small styrofoam balls, small wool felt balls, or if you want to take the extra step, you can make your own pom-poms, which is kind of what I opted to do. And the reason I love that is because it allows you to pick out your own color palette. I had some bright yarns that I really love, and I've got some little pom-pom makers. We don't have time to make these together right now, but I will tell you, if you head over to my website right now, which is robertmahar.com, on the front page today, I've got a video tutorial on how to make your own pom-poms. So that'll give you something to do after you watch this live video. But the end results, come on, how good are those? They're really fun, I think, you know? And they attach easily with hot glue. You just add a little bit of hot glue to the bottom of the foot. Press it on there, hold it for a second. And again, I use these for the bottom of all 4 legs, for either side of the ears and for the tail. But in the interest of time, my friends, I'm gonna jump ahead to show you next how to attach your marionette to your hanging structure. Now, this hanging structure has been created from jumbo craft sticks. I had a bunch of these in my craft supply. If you've got regular popsicle sticks, if you've got chopsticks, you can get a little creative, use what you have. I've taken 2 of them and I've just glued them together. Little word to the wise, you want this to be fairly secure. So once you initially glue it, I would clamp it with some clothespins, set it aside for a half hour, let it to set up and dry completely, and then you'll be good to go. If I was doing this with little kids, the next step and the way I would attach it would be to take the looped part that holds the body up, I would span it across the top of my holding mechanism. You see how I did that? And I would simply tape it in place. You could secure this with some really cute washi tape, some masking tape, even some colorful duct tape would work. But if, like me, you want to cut it and tie it into holes in your holder, let me show you how that happens. If I hold this up here, you can see that I've created a hole in the back that holds up the tail end, a hole just to the front of the cross brace, and that's for the front of the body, and then one at the very front, and that holds up the head. And again, for this, I have found the easiest method for this is our friend, the hole punch. It is surprising that with just a little bit of pressure, give it a good squeeze, it creates a really nice little hole in there. I'm gonna create all of my holes now for that. You could also use, if you want to get fancy and you've got a Dremel at home, that would be perfect for creating these little holes. You could also potentially, if you've got a sharp ball or other object, that would be good for that too. So we're going to jump back to our marionette guy for this hoop, and we're going to cut that loop right in the center. Take the tail end, and remember we've got the 2 holes in the back and just a single hole in the, nope, did I get that right? Nah, opposite. The hole in the very back is for the tail, just to the front of the cross brace is for the front of the body, and the very front is for the head. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna place your string through that hole. Again, you're gonna tie a good knot, probably double knot it. If you learned from my example earlier, a good knot is worth its weight in gold as far as keeping your marionette afloat. There we go. So when you hold it up, you can see, perfect. Now I'm gonna take the string from the front, and that is gonna go through the center hole that we created. And what I'm gonna do at this stage, come on, go through, there we go. I'm gonna hold this up because I want these two to be fairly level as far as how the marionette hangs. So you can see I've got actually a little bit of excess at the top. Can you see that? I think you can. So I'm gonna tie a knot there, and then we'll trim off a little bit of excess from that component. Whew, we're whipping along. Thanks for sticking with me, friends. I am excited to see your interpretation of these. You know, I have been calling these alpacas, but I also realized that there is a fine line between an alpaca and a llama, and in this case, a horse or a deer. If you added a little extra neck, it could even be a zebra. I've now pulled the head string up through the front, and you see I've got a lot of extra string there. So I'm just gonna make sure that I tie the knot so that the head isn't flopping over to the side. Let me give that a good thing. I do think though that this is a good shape for the basis of most four-legged animals. You know, just depending on the way you style it, on the type of ears and facial features that you add on, you could make a whole menagerie of these. Okay, we good? I think we're good. Now, you'll be adding on pom-poms as we discussed, and as we're speeding along, my friends, we gotta talk about some facial features. Now, if ever there were a project that called for googly eyes, this would be it, and I didn't have any in my craft stash. I'm a little embarrassed. But what I did have was some black and white paper. I had some black and white paper, and I had some hole punches. Now, obviously, you could cut these out freehand, but for me, just to make it a little bit quicker, I punched out some white circles, I punched out some black dots. You glue them together, you've got an eye. Now on the ones that I created, you can see that I cut out a little triangular shape there. This creates what's referred to as a pie eye. If you're familiar with a certain cartoon character that has an amusement park, he's got a pie eye. A lot of cartoons from the 30s do, and I just think it adds a little bit of charm and character. To create, oh, let's create some ears. So this, I just took a little square of my colored paper, I folded it in half, and I cut out the shape of an ear. This is kind of like creating those old school Valentines where you fold the paper in half and you cut half a heart. Once that's done, then you cut it down the center, and what you end up with are two little ears, and you'll just glue those to the back of the head. With both the ears and with the eyes, I've hot glued those on, but these would easily adhere with the white glue as well. And then, the final touch on our marionette, oh, I've got him a little tangled here. Come on, buddy. There we go. Is our saddle blanket. I love these saddle blankets. Hands down, the easiest way to put together a saddle blanket would just be to cut a rectangular piece of plain paper and draw stripes or paint stripes and then just glue it onto the back. What I opted for was digging into my stash of colored paper, cutting out a rectangle, adhering some little stripes of paper, and then, let me show you, I'll hold this up closer to the camera. On the ends, I fringed it just a little bit to kind of give it the appearance of cloth. If you want to get a little extra with this step, this would look amazing made out of felt or maybe some scrap fabric from your stash. But once that's put together, you're simply going to glue it onto the back of your marionette. Whew, deep breath, my friends. I think that we've made it all the way through. Can you believe it? That was a lot of ground to cover, but I do love these guys. I think they're awful sweet, and I hope that you have fun putting yours together. If you do end up making some of these, I would 100% be flattered if you would tag me in your Instagram post, just so that I can see what you made. I would love that. A reminder, I know we went really fast today, but if you would like to receive step-by-step written instructions along with some photographs, go to my Instagram or my website, robertmahar.com. Sign up for my monthly newsletter. You can unsubscribe at any time, but this weekend, I'm gonna send out the directions so that you've got them in front of you. And this video, of course, will live on for a while as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm looking at all of your lovely messages and all of the hearts. Thank you, thank you. I adore you guys, I really do. I love interacting with you online. Why am I getting emotional? That's so silly. You have been so supportive and kind, and I love the community that we have created. Crafters are the best, man. They really are. So let me encourage you to stay safe, be kind to one another, and be crafty. My friends, thanks so much for joining me today. I adore you, and I hope to see you soon. Okay,